woman who's getting divorced and the thought of calling a family lawyer or financial advisor fills you with dread, then this is the video for you. This is the Willow Brook Lifestyle Financial Planning YouTube channel, and I'm Kerry Griffiths, and I'm a financial advisor who works exclusively with divorcing women. And I'm delighted to be joined today by family lawyer Liza Gatrell. Hello. And
Hello.
She's going to talk with us around this whole kind of image that we have of professionals and what we can do to make sure that you feel ready and comfortable to engage the people who can really help you. And what I really want to do is talk to Liza a little bit about social media and talk about how we're using that, and just kind of give you that insight into how professionals work and make you feel really comfortable and ready to pick up the phone. So Liza, do you want to start by just telling us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, definitely. Hi. So my name's Liza Gatrell, as you said. I work as an Associate Solicitor on the south coast of England, qualified in 2008, so coming up to 13 years, perhaps I'll have some this year. I have 3 boys at home, 8, 4 and 2, so have to say, other than work and dealing with all of that, not a huge amount of time for much else.
Are they back in school yet?
No, so they'll go back on the 8th of March. I think it's just been announced.
The England and the Wales rules are different, and it's really hard to keep track at times. So yeah, so not long.
No, looking forward to it, I have to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we met Liza on Instagram, and it was where we just kind of got to know a little bit more about what each other do and follow each other's content. So let's start by you telling me a little bit about how you came to set up that Instagram account.
So going back sort of to the end of 2019, I set up a fertility law Instagram account, which is how I sort of started Instagram. And I have to say, up until then, I'd never used Instagram before. So I had experience of Facebook and Twitter, but Instagram wasn't something that I'd gone towards. However, I was aware that for my fertility work, there was lots of clinics and things that all dealt with Instagram. So I thought, oh, this will be brilliant. I'll try and do it. It's more international, set it all up. And it was only when I was then using the account that I realised this would be really great for the divorce work that I do, because I started to come across accounts like yours and the Divorce Goddess and other coaches and amazing people that are doing such great work for clients that are going through a divorce, that it then occurred to me, right, this would be really great for divorce clients. COVID then hit back at the beginning of last year, working from home. Decided, I don't have enough things to be doing myself, and then decided that I was gonna set up the new account. So I set up the At Your Family Solicitor account, and it's a bit of a work in progress, learning as I go along with it. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's getting there.
Yeah, I love it. I love your account. So what's your aims with your account? What do you want your account to achieve?
I think when people think about a solicitor, there are lots of words that come to mind, which might be stuffy, boring, arrogant, fat cats. There's all sorts of horrible things that people think of.
They'd say exactly the same about financial advisors, just to say they've got the same viewpoint. Yeah, carry on.
Yeah, definitely. And I think when you're going through a divorce, it's a really emotional time. And you're going to be speaking to somebody about the innermost workings of your relationship, your children, your finances. It's not uncommon for us to go through clients' bank accounts or their wage slips. And you need to be able to trust that person. And you want to be able to get on with them as well. And I think that was the aim behind the account, was to show, actually, we're normal. I'm a normal working mum. I'm an expert in what I do. I've been doing it a long time, so hopefully that comes across, that I know what I'm doing. And it was really to just try and break those barriers down, to show that it's not scary to pick up the phone and speak to me. I mean, hopefully by looking at the account, people already get an idea of who I am, how I sound, how the type of advice that I give to clients, how I do that, the type of family lawyer that I am, which means that when they do pick up the phone, it's less scary.
I agree. I agree. I think they definitely would pick that up from your account. And I think that's wonderful that the aims that you've got there are just all around making this step easier. And actually then there's lots of sharing that goes on so that they can kind of get an awareness as they're following along as well, which is just super, super useful. Um, so how do you think women are feeling? And the reason I'm talking about women obviously is because it's my YouTube channel and I work with women, but I know you work with men and women. But if we focus on women, because they're primarily the audience, but how do you think they're feeling when they have to reach out to a family lawyer? And what steps do you take to just kind of help with that?
Oh, it's petrifying, isn't it? It really is terrifying, because it's all the unknowns.
Yeah.
If you whether your relationship has broken down or you think it might break down and you're trying to work out sort of what's going to happen if that does take place, having all those questions swirling around your head, the idea of picking up the phone and speaking to a complete stranger about all of that, and you know, because we'll have watched programs on TV which are dramatized. And we'll
Just
have
talking
friends.
about one, weren't we? Actually, we
Yeah.
literally just had a conversation about one, and I was like, "What type of law was that?" Because I couldn't follow. But yeah, you're right. They'll have this impression.
So that's where they get their knowledge of perhaps what a courtroom's like, for
Yeah.
example, or what a solicitor does, and how that appointment might look. And depending on which program they've watched, will give a very different outlook to that. And then on top of that, you've got, as I say, you've got family and friends that will also have been going through potentially divorces, and they would have been on the sidelines listening to perhaps how that happened and how their separation took place. And all of that will leave a lot of really uncomfortable feelings. And as I say, the idea of having to pick up the phone and speak to a complete stranger about this is pretty frightening. And I think the way I do it is we just have a chat. That's the whole point with the first appointment, is that we speak to the client. So at the moment it tends to be via Zoom or telephone, but you know, back in the good old days, the client would have come into the office and we would have been able to have a chat. And what I like to do is just let the clients talk for a bit, because often actually all the information that I need comes out anyway.
Yeah, that's so true.
Rather than me just barraging them with questions. And that gets them a little bit more comfortable then, because they're chatting. And then as we get further along in the interview, it may be that I do ask specific questions. But it's letting them have that voice, I think, letting them feel that they've been heard is the most important thing.
And yeah, you're right. I quite often find the same thing when I'm with my clients. The first part of an initial meeting is just, okay, where are you? What's happening? And then just kind of letting it all spill out. And you'll not only get the right information, but you'll also get the right priorities, because they'll say the important things first. And it's really interesting when you have those conversations to be able to go, okay, this keeps coming up, this has come out first, and get that kind of sense of, you know, what's really important. And if you do the opposite to that and just ask questions, you miss that side of things. You miss that kind of emotional aspect of what's going on and where things lie for them and what they need to deal with first and why. So yeah, I think that's a really good way to approach things. And like you say, it does make people really relaxed when they've just had this chance to say, okay, here I am, and this is what's going on.
And then give them a time to digest as well. So we tend to then confirm everything in writing. So we have that chat, and then we send it all out to them in writing so that they can read it, properly digest it. They can contact us if they've got any more questions. There's nothing worse than getting to the end of the appointment and being like, right, okay, sign on the dotted line. And, you know, we're going to go forward with this divorce now. It's not like that at all. It's kind of saying, well, here's all the information. Go away, have a think about it, and then come back.
That's a really good point, because that is something that does make people particularly anxious, is this thought of there's no going back, and this thought of this is so very final, where actually quite often the exploration around whether divorce is right needs that legal input, you know, before final decisions are made. So a lot of it can just be kind of fact gathering and sense checking what they think might be what they need to do. Liza, what I was really interested in is, what do you think that the law could do better to help women get over the barriers that they face in accessing advice? So I know what you're doing, but what do you think, kind of bigger picture, how do we get to a place where those barriers are kind of broken down for women?
That's a really hard one.
A really hard one.
law is really slow changing. I think that's one of the problems, is that it just, any form of change takes forever. We've only got the new divorce procedure that will be coming in at the end of this year, and that's taken a huge amount of time to go through, and is a big step forward. So that's also about taking away the blame from the divorce. As far as women are concerned, I think the problem with divorce proceedings is that they can be quite adversarial. And I think women don't necessarily deal with the adversarial system as well, perhaps, as men do, because we're more in touch with our emotions a little bit. We take on the stress of it all and the anxiety of it all that little bit more. And I don't want to say that's for everybody. There are some people that will deal with it brilliantly. But I think for women, in particular, the more conciliatory that we can make the process, the more comfortable that they are with that, the more that it's not his word against my word, the more that we're looking at it as a whole, and that we're working together. So, solicitors, financial advisors, all of us coming together to try and get a resolution, then the better that is for women. I think, for women, having to go through the court process is always, and it's stressful for everybody. It's not pleasant for anybody, but I think that is somewhere that's a particular place that for women, the legal system could do better.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, actually. And I completely agree. When you have a group of people around you supporting you, so you've got your lawyer, but you've also working with a divorce coach and your financial planner, and there's this supportive network of people who are helping give you a perspective, helping giving you some direction, and then just helping you take a more informed choice about what you're going to be doing and why. That's a really good way to navigate. And I think actually one of the things that we have seen over the past years is how those groups of professionals have started really working much more closely together. So it's actually really, really normal for me to work with and alongside solicitors and divorce coaches, as a kind of a really normal part of practice now, which wasn't the case a few years ago. And I think more of that will really help women.
Yeah, definitely. And I think places like Instagram are great for that as well. The networking is not just about reaching out to clients, but actually becoming aware of other professionals that can also help with clients. The networking that provides is brilliant.
It is, isn't it? And then also becoming aware of kind of different people's styles and approaches, because every client is going to need a different kind of professional to work alongside them. Because, I talk about women quite broadly, but actually across that whole spectrum, there's going to be some who are going to be feeling way more vulnerable than others, some who are going to want something that is going to be kind of super supportive, and others who are going to want more of a lighter touch approach. And it does give you that insight, I think, Instagram, to kind of build on the relationship you've built with other professionals and get to know who might be kind of a good option for different people. So yeah, it does really help from that perspective. So my last question for you then, to end on, is do you have any hints or tips for somebody getting divorced, and where they should maybe start?
I think the first thing is to get advice early, and that's not just legal advice, but that is financial advice. Speak to a mortgage advisor. Make sure that knowledge is power, so make sure that you've got all of that up front, because there is nothing more difficult for us than when a client comes to see us and steps have already been taken that perhaps shouldn't have been and can't be undone. So get that advice at the beginning. Whether you take that advice and then decide not to proceed for a little while, that's absolutely fine, but make sure that any decisions that you're making are being made with your eyes wide open, that you really understand what those implications are. That'd be number one, get advice. Number two, build your team. So get your family and friends around you for support, but let's not be taking necessarily legal advice and financial advice from family members. Get advice from a solicitor, get advice from a financial advisor. If you're having difficulty coping emotionally with the divorce, then speak to a divorce coach or a therapist. None of this is going to be frowned upon or looked negatively upon. It's all about putting you in the best frame of mind and supporting you in the best way moving forward. And then I think probably third would be take the emotion out of it as much as you can when we're looking at a divorce. So as difficult as that is, and I understand that time that it's much easier said than done, because divorce is without doubt an emotional subject, but that's not how the court's going to look at it. The court's going to look at it as on facts. So, okay, well, what's the house worth? What's the mortgage? What's the outstanding mortgage? What assets do we have? What debts do we have? The court's not really going to be looking at who said what 5 years ago, or arguments that you had, or so it's trying to put that to one side and saying, okay, that's why my relationship broke down, but I'm going to compartmentalize that. I'm going to put it to one side, and I'm going to look at this like a business transaction.
Love
because
that.
that's the way that I'm going to be able to get it sorted and dealt with as quickly and as cost effectively as possible.
I love that. I love that. I always say that divorce is the end of a contract, but I love the thought of thinking of it as a business transaction. Actually, that gives it such great context. Lisa, you have been an amazing guest. Thank you so, so much. I'm going to put the links to your Instagram and your LinkedIn account in the description so people can come and follow along with you. And yeah, thank you very much. And I will be in touch soon. We can do another one of these. Take care, Lisa.
Thank you, Mary.
Bye.
Bye.